A volunteer gave your charity every Saturday morning for 2 years. She turned up in the rain, learned everyone's names, covered shifts nobody else wanted, and asked for nothing. Then one week she stopped coming, and when someone finally noticed and asked why, she could not quite explain it. Nothing went wrong, exactly. She just slowly stopped feeling that it mattered whether she was there. That is how most charities lose their volunteers, not in a dramatic falling out, but in a quiet fading, and it is almost always avoidable, because the thing that keeps volunteers is the cheapest thing there is, feeling genuinely appreciated. This video is about the craft of thanking volunteers, well, why it is different from thanking donors, how to do it often and specifically, and how a tiny team can make people feel valued without a budget. Volunteers are not free labor. They are supporters who give the rarest thing of all, their time. One honest note first. This is educational content only. We are not affiliated with anything, and nothing here is legal advice, so follow your own policies and check anything that matters with the official source. Why volunteers quietly leave? Let us start with the uncomfortable truth about why volunteers drift away, because understanding it is the whole battle. People rarely quit volunteering because the work got too hard or their circumstances changed, though those happen. Far more often, they leave because they stopped feeling that their presence mattered, that anyone noticed whether they came, that their effort made a difference to a real person. A volunteer gives you something they can never get back, an hour of their finite life, freely, and in return they are not asking for money, they are asking for meaning and to be appreciated. When that appreciation is missing, the volunteering slowly loses its point, and one week they simply do not come, often without ever telling you why. The good news buried in this is that the cure is entirely within your control and costs almost nothing. Volunteers stay where they feel seen, valued, and connected to the good they help create, and making them feel that way is a skill you can learn. Thanking volunteers is not the same as thanking donors. It is tempting to treat volunteer thanks like donor thanks, but they are genuinely different, and blurring them is a common mistake. A donor gave money, and the natural thank you honors the gift and shows the impact it brought. A volunteer gave something more personal, their time, their presence, their skill, and often their heart. So the thank you has to honor the person, not just the contribution. Thanking a volunteer with a formal transactional note, the kind you might send a donor, can actually feel cold because they were not writing a check. They were showing up, chatting, caring, being part of things. What volunteers most want to hear is that they personally matter, that their particular way of being there is noticed and valued. So lead with the human, not the hours. It is less about we received your contribution and much more about we are so glad it is you, and this place is warmer because you are in it. Say it often and say it specifically. The single biggest thing you can do costs nothing and takes seconds. Say thank you far more often than you think you need to, and say it specifically. A quiet, sincere thank you at the end of every single shift, from a real person who means it, does more to retain volunteers than any annual awards evening. But make it specific, because a vague thanks for your help washes over people, while thank you for staying late to help Mrs. Patel find her bus. That was really kind lens, because it proves you actually saw what they did. Specific thanks says I noticed you in a way general thanks never can. So train yourself and everyone who leads volunteers to notice the particular thing each person did and name it, in the moment, warmly and briefly. Frequency and specificity together are the entire foundation of volunteer appreciation, and they are available to the smallest charity with no budget at all, requiring only attention and the habit of saying what you see. Notice the person, not just the hours. Real appreciation means seeing the human being, not just the labor they supply, and this is where genuine relationships form. Learn your volunteers' names and use them. Remember small things about their lives, that one is studying for exams, another has a poorly dog, a third loves to bake, and ask about them. Notice when someone seems down, and check in without an agenda. Celebrate their birthdays and milestones. None of this is a technique. It is simply treating volunteers as the friends of the charity they are. But the effect on retention is enormous, because people stay where they feel known. A volunteer who feels like an anonymous pair of hands will drift, while one who feels like a valued member of a community that would notice and miss them will stay for years. So invest in knowing your people as people, because that knowing is both the kindest thing you can do and, not by coincidence, the thing that keeps them. The thank you that costs nothing. Some of the most powerful thanks you can give a volunteer cost absolutely nothing but a little thought and time, which is perfect for a charity with no budget. A handwritten note, 3 sincere lines on a plain card, is kept for years in a way no printed certificate ever is. A short personal message that names something specific they did. A quiet word from the founder or a trustee who took the trouble to seek them out and say their work matters. A phone call simply to say thank you, with nothing asked, introducing them to a beneficiary who wants to thank them personally. These small human gestures land far harder than anything you could buy, because their whole value is that a real person chose to spend a moment on them. Do not wait until you can afford something impressive. The most treasured forms of a volunteer recognition are almost always the cheapest, and they are limited only by your willingness to notice and to bother. Public recognition done with care. Recognizing volunteers publicly, in your newsletter, on social media, at an event can be lovely, but it needs a gentle touch because public praise done clumsily can misfire. Some people glow at being celebrated in front of others, while some are mortified by it. So know your volunteer before you put them in the spotlight. And when in doubt, ask if they would be comfortable. Keep public recognition genuine and specific rather than generic. A real story of what a volunteer did means far more than a list of names. Be careful to spread appreciation fairly, so the same few faces do not always get the praise, while quieter, equally faithful people go unmentioned. And always get consent before sharing anyone's photo or story. Done thoughtfully, public recognition tells your whole community that this charity values its volunteers, which honors the person named and quietly inspires others. But it should complement your private personal thanks, never replace them. Show them the difference they made. Volunteers, like donors, need to see that their effort actually mattered, because effort poured into a void eventually feels pointless. So close the loop for them, show them the difference their time made, and make it concrete. The shift you covered meant the food bank stayed open on Friday, and 40 families were fed. The calls you made meant 12 lonely people had a real conversation this week. Wherever you can, connect a volunteer-specific contribution to a real human outcome so they feel the point of their Saturday mornings. Share the wins, the thank you letters from beneficiaries, the small victories, so volunteers feel part of the good, not just the graft. A volunteer who can see the line between their effort and the changed life will keep showing up through cold mornings and dull tasks because they know it counts. Meaning is the wage you pay your volunteers, so pay it generously and often by always showing them the results of what they gave. Small perks that actually matter. Beyond words, a few small practical gestures make volunteering feel valued rather than taken for granted, and they need not cost much. Provide the basics well. A warm welcome, a decent cup of tea, a comfortable place to sit. Their expenses reimbursed promptly and without fuss, because nothing sours a volunteer faster than being out of pocket for helping you. Feed people at longer sessions. Offer things that genuinely benefit them. A reference for a job, training that builds their skills, a chance to learn something new. Because good volunteering should give back to the volunteer too. Remember that many people volunteer partly for connection, so create moments to socialize, a shared lunch, a cup of tea together after a shift. These are not bribes. They are simple signals that you respect your volunteers' comfort and growth. Getting the small, practical things right tells people, more than any speech, that this is a place that looks after those who help it. When someone gives years, not hours, your long-serving volunteers, the ones who have quietly given years, deserve something more than the everyday thanks, because their loyalty is extraordinary and easy to take for granted precisely because they are always there. Mark their milestones deliberately, a year, 5 years, 10, with something that recognizes the depth of what they have given. A heartfelt letter, a gathering in their honor, a gift chosen with real thought about who they are. Ask them for their wisdom. Invite them to mentor newer volunteers or advise on decisions, because being trusted with responsibility is itself a profound form of recognition. Never let a faithful long-timer become invisible, the person so reliable that everyone forgets to thank them because they simply assume she will always be there. She will not always be there, especially if she never hears that her decade of Saturdays mattered. So look hardest at the people you rely on most, and make very sure they know it. Build recognition into how you run. Everything in this video fails if it depends on someone remembering to be grateful in a busy week, so build appreciation into how your charity actually runs, quietly and by default. Make ending every shift with a specific thank you a norm everyone follows, not a nice idea. Keep a simple record of who volunteers, when they started, and small facts about them, so nobody is forgotten and milestones are not missed. Put birthdays and volunteering anniversaries in a calendar with a reminder. Decide who is responsible for volunteer appreciation by name, so it is somebody's actual job and not everybody's vague intention, which always means nobody's. Ask your volunteers now and then how they are finding it and what would make them feel more valued, and then listen. None of this is elaborate. It is simply the difference between hoping appreciation happens and making sure it does. And that difference is what separates the charities volunteers stay with from the ones they quietly leave. Quick recap. Let us bring it together. Volunteers rarely leave over the work. They leave when they stop feeling that their presence matters. So appreciation is the whole game. Thanking a volunteer is different from thanking a donor because you are honoring a person and their time, not a gift. So lead with the human. Say thank you often and specifically, naming the particular thing they did, and notice the person, not just the hours. Use the free human gestures that land hardest. A handwritten note, a personal word, a phone call. Recognize people publicly with care and consent. Always show them the concrete difference their time made, and get the small practical perks right. Honor your long-serving volunteers deliberately, and build appreciation into how you run so it never depends on a busy week. Here is the quietly wonderful thing about looking after volunteers well. It asks of you exactly the qualities that made you start a charity in the first place: attention, warmth, and the willingness to notice a person and tell them they matter. You cannot pay volunteers, and you do not need to, because what they are really seeking is meaning, belonging, and the simple human experience of being appreciated for their generosity, and all of those are free to give and endless in supply. A volunteer who feels genuinely valued will not only stay, they will bring their friends, defend you to strangers, and give you the best years of their spare time. So here's your simple start this week. Thank 3 of your volunteers properly, name the specific thing each one did, tell them honestly what it made possible, and make sure they know this place is better because they are in it. Remember that everything here is educational only. We are not affiliated with anything, and nothing here is legal advice, so follow your own policies and check anything important with the official source. If this helped, subscribe for more practical, honest charity marketing you can actually use, and take a look at the free written guide linked below. We will keep turning big, intimidating topics into calm, doable steps, one video at a time.